Hello, everyone, and welcome to Magma Rage's 68. It's been quite a while since we've had an episode. In all honesty, personally, I've been on a bit of a break from Hearthstone. I pretty much barely played this last month. But now we've got some exciting new news. There, words. You can see this podcasting thing's been a while. I can barely talk. So we've got Pandemonia here as always, and we're going to be talking about Rastakhan's Rumble, the new Hearthstone expansion that was announced at Blizzcon. I mean, that's going to be our main talking point. We've missed quite a lot since the last Magma Rages, but we don't want to go too far back in time and bore you talking about the meta as it currently is and everything like that. We're instead just going to look forward to Rastakhan's Rumble. Okay, so the expansion is going to be releasing on the 4th of December. That's pretty cool. We're getting a couple new mechanics, a couple new cards we're going to talk about now. First of all, other than the sound issues that they had at BlizzCon, I don't know if you actually watched it live. How did you feel about the overall BlizzCon reveal? Like, you know, I mean, this is the first BlizzCon reveal without Ben Brode. Obviously, Boomsday Project, they didn't have Ben Brode involved, but
I didn't actually watch much of it, so I think I was out, so I basically just kept updated, like on my phone.
okay.
So all I did was but apparently just before BlizzCon, the name and the theme were accidentally leaked on like one of the PC gaming sites. It was
PC
accidentally. Yeah, PC Gamer. It accidentally found its way into a completely unrelated article. Somebody had accidentally pasted it. Like it was like an article about something, and then literally after the end of the article, there's a paragraph about Rastakhan's Rumble and Hearthstone, and somebody was like, "Whoa, wait."
Yeah, okay. So there was a couple things. I mean, them having to move not off the Hearthstone stage at BlizzCon was a bit lame, because they had sound issues there, so they had to do it from the main stage, which is a bit disappointing for the Hearthstone crowd. I was a little bit disappointed they didn't do. I don't know. I actually stopped watching it after a little bit after the video. I really liked the theme song and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. The theme looks pretty cool. The art is great. I mean, you can see we're using some of it for background art, and it really does look good. I thought the actual the release video they do to go with it, where they reveal a couple cards and talk about it, I thought that was pretty cringy though.
Well, it's always cringy, right?
Yeah, but not in a good way. They were sitting there and yelling for the arena. Anyway,
it's always super cringy. I mean, Witchwood was just as cringy.
Witchwood was much better though. I honestly think Witchwood and Angora was probably the best one they had with that whole series, so they actually got proper actors to do it. Anyway, let's dive into some of the cards and some of the themes. So the theme for Rastakhan's Rumble, we're going back to Stranglethorn Vale, an area that if you play lots of WoW, like I did, especially back in the day, Stranglethorn Vale was a very popular area. So I know the WoW area pretty well, and I know the Gurubashi arena that they're talking about. The concept for this is basically Rastakhan's a tribal troll leader, and he hosts essentially a big arena tournament where arena
tournament, cough cough.
Yeah, kind of, but yeah, very different theme to that tournament, right? I mean, this is very much more in a Roman Colosseum style vibe rather than a knights jousting type of vibe. Please no jousting.
Sure.
Yeah, let's hope this is nothing like the Grand Tournament. We know it shouldn't be in terms of theme, but let's hope it's nothing like it in terms of actual mechanics either. Because, Grand Tournament, I think, goes down as one of the worst Hearthstone expansions, actually. Yeah, Joust, Joust, Inspire, it all just fell flat. It was terrible. Yeah. Okay, so we have...
mechanic.
Yeah. So, we have the 9 classes are being represented as teams. Each of these teams has, a lower that they kind of... I don't know. It seems to me to be the god of their team, where they kind of draw their power from. They're spiritual being, their Horcrux, no, Horcrux. What's the thing from Harry Potter?
Yeah, the Hawker. Oh, their mascot. Like, it's a, well,
No, I'm thinking.
like their deity.
I'm gonna get in trouble with somebody for this. But the thing like the like Harry has the stag, etc.
Patronus.
Patronus. Yeah, they're like in a way, like, right? Like it's like the class is Patronus. That's kind of what I think. Anyway,
Okay.
it's randomly aside. Okay, let's have a look at the first one here. First up, we have Chavala, the tiger. This is obviously the paladin one.
Chavala.
Yes. Chavala is a 25 mana paladin legendary, a 7/5 beast with divine shield, rush, and lifesteal, and it costs 1 less for each mana you've spent on spells. So if you cast a consecration, Chavala will go down to 21 mana. You cast an equality. Hopefully you did that in the right order and cast that first. Chavala will go down to 19 mana. So you can kind of see the idea here. You're wanting to combine a lot of the paladin spells, which generally fall under the kind of control archetypes, I would say, with Chavala to get some swing turn where you can get a board presence and maybe do something else in that same turn. You know, like if later in the game you went Equality Consecration, then actually were able to play Chavala, that would be pretty useful. For example.
Although, if you Equality Consecrate, Chavala can't gain you the life immediately.
Yes. That is true, but on the other hand, like you still do get a 7/5 rush lifesteal or divine shield lifesteal. I mean, in that case, yeah.
So the question with this card really, it's gonna come down to someone's gonna need to do the maths and work out, like, how many spells do you need to make this to be decent, and also how consistently does that actually happen in the game, right? Like, I mean, how reliably are you, let's say, costing 20 mana worth of spells to make it a 5 mana 7/5?
Yeah.
That's kind of the big question.
I think one of the big cards for that deck might be Shrink Ray, the 5 mana one that sets all the minions to 1/1s, basically, right? That's what it does. Because that's probably going to, like, that knocks off quite a chunk in a single card, which is important. You don't want to be spending, you're not going to get there playing Paladin Secrets, right?
No.
Like, it's just, you need to be knocking off quite a lot in a single chunk. Otherwise, it means you have to draw too many cards before you can actually play Chavala. So whilst the deck might have, like Lay on Hands is a good example, or whilst the deck might have cards like Equality, that's not really the card that's bringing it down. That's just a card that's facilitating the rest of your control cards, you know. Equality Consecration together is 6, but you've spent 2 cards. And we need to find a little bit more in terms of payoffs, I think, for this really to really talk about this deck.
It's static, right?
What do you mean?
As in, like, even if it's your deck and you draw it late game, it then becomes free, right? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Like, if it had to be in your hand, it would be absolute garbage. Because if it's the last card in your deck, it's unplayable. Like, that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's difficult to hold any kind of idea about how good Chavala is going to be, but we can see that they may be trying to push the class in a little bit more of a control direction.
And you're going to have to build, I mean, like they said with most of the lower, like, basically, you're going to want to build the deck around the lower. And, like, this Chavala's kind of, I think, made the obvious one, right? You're going to have to build a deck specifically to utilize Chavala.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the next lower, the only other one we have, which is Henrique the Bat. I don't know why I rolled the R. That didn't even make sense. It should be like, Henrique! Well, I don't know. Whatever a bat-sounding thing would be. That was all terrible. I'll edit that all out, except that I won't. I'll definitely leave it in. Okay, Henrique the Bat is an 8 mana 1/1 legendary beast with Battle Cry. Fill your board with copies of this minion. So obviously 8 mana for 7 1/1s does not seem like a good deal. So we are going to need to be buffing this whilst it's in our hand, right? That's the idea here.
Yeah.
I mean, or possibly in your deck if you're looking at cards like Keleseth. But like most of the ways we're going to be buffing this is in our hand. And the ways we have to do that right now in Warlock is pretty much Soul Infusion.
Keleseth and Soul Infusion.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see the Spirit for Warlock does kind of is meant to help facilitate this, but realistically, how big do we have to be getting Henrique to be happy about playing it?
Like, okay, so 8 mana for 7/1/1s is not good, right?
Yes.
Now, 8 mana for 7/2/2s, it's one of those things that, like, stats-wise, 16/16 stats sounds good. Like, 14/14 stats sounds good. But how good are the 2/2s on turn 8?
Yeah, I would say that it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad then.
Because
I mean, even
it's also
3/3s
very... So at 2/2, it is very, very susceptible to AoE.
to AoE.
Because
Yeah.
you're looking
Even
at
3/3.
Consecration, Blizzard, and then everything above that. And then at 3/3, we're looking at... There's still quite a lot of AoE. Like Hellfires, Dustbreakers, Hagatha...
Flame strikes.
Flame Strike's at 4. I'm talking about the breakpoint of 3.
Oh, 3.
Like, you got to talk about each breakpoint, right?
Yeah.
And at 2, you also are not going past the breakpoint of Volcano. So, like, that's actually another weird one. Volcano and Lightning Storm. So, you like, at 3, you're bypassing a fair amount of a board clear. But it's only really at 4 where you can be happy against most classes. Then you're really just looking at Flame Strike, Dragon's Fury, maybe, like, and other 2-card combinations from other classes, right?
Yeah. But now the problem is, okay, so now we're saying like 4 becomes like decent. The problem is to get it to 4. I mean, double Soul Infuse?
Yeah.
I mean, well, then you got 5s. And I mean, then 8 mana for 7/5/5s is potentially good. But the problem is, first of all, it requires a setup. But also, you need to be alive on turn 8 to be able to play 8 mana for a bunch of 5/5s.
Yeah.
And it suffers from a similar problem almost to a Mega Agent, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a scenario where you have an empty board. I mean, okay, even if you have like a minion or 2 on board, if you're getting 6 or 5/5/5s, it's probably okay. But basically, to get the most out of it, you want to have an empty board, and then you want to be in a position where you can play a bunch of, just 5/5s, like you said. So they need to basically not have too much on the board. I mean, maybe you get away with like Defile into Henrique. Like, maybe that works for Warlock. But I'm really not convinced. Like, I just don't see the decks that want to play Henrique. I don't see why. Like, you want to be a slower deck if you're playing it, right? Because you need to do this building value in your hand thing, I think. I mean,
yeah,
maybe a Zoo deck.
Oh.
Hand buff stuff, like, generally, right? This is the problem I have. Hand buff stuff generally, what it does is you give away tempo now to get tempo back later. And the problem with that in Zoo is very much a deck about tempo now. So it's very hard to play a deck like Zoo and still do hand buff things because you're just throwing away like future tempo. The only way it kind of sometimes works out is when you get like Soul Infusion onto Doubling Imp or Soul Infusion onto Serenite Chain Gang, and you can swing back that tempo. But the tempo that you lost was only 1 mana worth of tempo, and that's the only hand buff thing, and it's versatile in multiple cards. It's not like the deck's built around hand buffing. Whereas with Henrique, you're going to need to build around hand buffing, and I mean, they're going to have to print some really good hand buff cards, I think, to make it work.
Just an interesting thing somebody obviously pointed out, is this will be funny in Wild, the time that if you Shaman and you somehow get this and you can play this and evolve.
Sure.
Like for the Wombo combo. But I mean, that's obviously also a corner case.
I mean, you have to get Warlock cards as a Shaman and you have to play it. You can't just evolve into it. I mean, realistically, the way to do it is to evolve into it and then play the card that gives them Death Rattle and they return to your hand, the 3 mana one. I was literally playing it in the crappy Whizbang decks I was playing with you just now. No, the 3 mana, it's the Shaman spell that gives Death Rattle, get a copy of this minion to your hand when it dies. That's like... Anyway, whatever. I'm not talking about Wild. This is like... And that's dumb. Like, you're never going to try go for that. So, yeah. I mean, once again, difficult to rate. We need to see what the cards are going to be that support this. But overall, I'm not really happy with the direction of this for Warlock, right?
Yeah, it does not feel good.
I mean, hand buffing, it's either going to be very good or really terrible.
But the problem with the drought is from a design point of view, is if it becomes too good, like it's a very non-interactive
Exactly.
experience, right? So the problem is, if it ever becomes too good, is it not going to be then nerfed, right? Because it's a case of you can't
Well,
like
theoretically, if anything becomes too good, it's going to be nerfed. But I know what you're saying.
No, but I'm saying
they
my
will
point
nerf it
is,
for
it's
unfun reasons.
Unfun reasons, and that defeats the whole purpose of having it in the first place, right? Like,
yeah. It's a very
there's
hit or
no
miss
ways-
mechanic. It can't be
Yeah,
like... It's very difficult to make it like a little bit of it work, or like it to be a bit of a thing. Like mechs
That's what I'm
have kind
saying.
of been a bit of a thing, but you don't go all in on mechs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's either going to be like busted, like interactively annoyingly busted, or it's going to just be trash. Like, I don't see it just being good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to have to depend on the other cards, which I think is actually a good segue into the Warlock spirit that we have. So, as well as each class having its lower, which is going to be its legendary, we're also going to see each class is going to have a spirit, which represents that legendary in a way. You can see here for Warlock, we have Spirit of the Bat. Spirit of the Bat is a 2-mana 0/3 rare with stealth for 1 turn. After a friendly minion dies, give a minion in your hand +1/+1. So obviously this is meant to facilitate the buff, hand buff mechanic we were talking about. Clearly something meant for like a zoo deck.
Yeah, but a zoo deck, do you want to be playing a 2-mana 0/3? Like, I mean, remind me again why we're not playing Keleseth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I would like all my hand buff cards to be buffed before they even get to my hand. Thank you. And Spirit of the Bat does kind of stop you from playing Keleseth. But I mean that's the point, right? They I think they specifically don't want you to play Keleseth in this. They want to try and print good 2-drops. And I mean, there is some value in a zoo deck to having a minion that'll stick on the board. But then you need to be playing a lot of like on-board buff interaction type things. You know, like your abusive sergeants. What's it? Argent, the 1-mana 2/1. Man, I don't play Hearthstone for like a month and I forget every card's name.
Well, you play 2 of these on turn 4, and then you play whatchamacallit on 5. You play Fungalmancer on 5.
Yeah, okay. I mean, woo, we got 2/2/5s. Like, I was thinking about it, and like, even if you buff this thing, what? If you play Abusive Sergeant on, you get to attack as it being a 2/3. So I paid 2 mana for a 2/3. I'm not sold on that. Like, I actually looking at it, I'm like, wait. Like, the more and more I think about, like, you can buff this, the more useless it becomes, right? Like, it just doesn't have that much threat being buffed, actually. Like, next to Direwolf Alpha, what do? You get a 1/3. Like, you can pay 1 mana for a 1/3 with Taunt in Warlock. Why would I do that? I can pay 1 mana for a 3/2.
And how many friendly minions have to die for it to be good? That's the question as well, right?
I mean, it depends what you're buffing in your hand. It's like a random minion in your hand, right? So, like, let's say you have Henrique, a Firefly, and like a Saronite Chain Gang. It's good if it hits the Saronite Chain Gang or the Henrique. It's terrible if it hits the Firefly, pretty much, you know? Or you have a Doom Guard in your hand as well. A fairly common scenario in like a zoo deck. It's going to hit the Doom Guard. Sure, that gives you more burst, but you're not getting any value if that's what you need for this game. And the problem once again with this is it's anti-tempo, right? Because you're playing a 0/3. Now, like, the idea with all these spirits is that they're all 0 attack and that they have the stealth for 1 turn thing. But like, a 0/3, it's so low tempo. Like, for a zoo deck. Once again.
And the payoff is...
Yeah.
For me, the problem is the payoff is not even great.
Exactly. I mean,
like, that's the thing. Like, it's +1/+1. Like,
so like, I mean, in Paladin, we had the 2 mana 1/1 that buffed your whole hand +1/+1 on Battlecry. So guaranteed that you get +1/+1 for the size of your hand in minions. Basically, that's like 4, maybe 5 cards. Let's say. Spirit of the Bat, sure, it can buff 1 minion multiple times, which is valuable in a case like Henrique or Saronite Chain Gang or Doubling Imp. But most of the time, like, you're not even going to get that many. Like, what? You need to play 1-drops, then they play 1-drops, then you can play this, make some trades immediately, get some buffs, and then you play your 3-drop. But now, like, He made some
You've lost
trades.
a
You have to
tempo
hope
too.
they don't have. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can recover after that with some really good buffs. Like let's say you have 2 1-drops. Like let's say you 1-drop coin 1-dropped on turn 1. Play Spirit of the Bat on turn 2. You trade the 2 1-drops off. You play doubling imp. That's 2 4/4s. Like on turn 3. That's like the best case scenario I can think of. And I'm not that excited by that like payoff either.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Once again, I think our problem is just with hand buff, and we're going to need some cards that are much more convincing than this. But I think it's also a case of Warlock has been fairly good for a while, and they're giving them bad cards. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see Warlock and Druid getting pretty bad cards in this expansion. Yeah, so moving on to the next spirit, we have the Rogue Spirit, Spirit of the Shark. Spirit of the Shark is a 4-mana 0/3 rare minion with stealth for 1 turn. Your minions, battle cries, and combos trigger twice. So it's important here that it's minions and not like spells. So you can't eviscerate for 8 or cold blood for 8 or anything like that. It's specifically the minions. So we're looking at stuff like Leroy is obviously a very like interesting one if we're looking at combos. Or a high payoff one, let's say. Although it still is vulnerable to all the silences and removal that it usually is. And then we have like SI7 agent. Sorry, I said Leroy. I meant Edwin Van Cleef, yeah.
Yeah, Edwin Van Cleef. Well, I mean, Leroy does, but Leroy, it's more of a me. Right?
No, Leroy's just an anti... Like, that's not a thing. I just made a mistake when I said Leroy. I don't mean Leroy. Edwin Van Cleef, right? Then there's SI7 agent. Which, 3 mana, dealing the 4 damage is pretty good. And it can help you catch up in the tempo loss from playing Spirit of the Shark. There's Felderai Strider, but then you may as well have played Augmented Elec into Felderai Strider. You got better stats, and the payoff is just as good. I mean, this way you're guaranteed the payoff in a way, if they don't have AoE, because of the stealth. But I'm not convinced by that, by having to, like, delay my Felderai Strider until turn 5. There's stuff like Vile Spine Slayer is one of the best combos. Doesn't really work with this at all. There's no point in double killing a thing. And then there's I forgot its name. The 5-mana 4/4 that gives Cold Blood effect basically on combo.
Oh yeah, but
like
the combo one though. It's so bad though.
I mean, look, well, yeah, you can make the Spirit of the Shark have 8 attack if you can find a way to also then combo that. And yeah, it's a way to land damage, which maybe
you
for
get
some
the value
kind of road deck.
You get the value from Blink Fox.
Yeah, but Blink Fox is Battle Cry once again. I'm just talking about combos for now. Like,
combos.
I mean, the combo thing I'm not that excited about because I'm struggling to see the really good interactions. The battle cries I think is probably the more interesting part. There are quite a few decent battle cries. I mean, we saw like Bran was really good, although I'm not sure there's as many good battle cries now as there were when Bran was around.
The problem also is Bran was a 3-mana 2/4.
So, arguably though, if I might have paid more for Bran if he had stealth. I mean,
yeah, but a 0/3.
Yeah, but a lot of the time it's just for the effect. And I mean, at 4 mana, it's not so expensive that you can't play something else the same turn you play it with a battle cry.
Sure.
I don't know. I think Spirit of the Shark has potential. At least it doesn't involve Death Rattle, which means they're not trying to make more Death Rattle stuff for Rogue.
God, yeah.
Although Death Rattle is not that bad compared to Thief Rogue stuff, and this arguably does work with Thief Rogue stuff because those are mostly battle cries on like the minions and stuff.
Good old Thief Rogue stuff. Who could forget Thief Rogue?
Oh yeah,
stuff?
Your test can trigger twice. Woohoo! Please no. Yeah, so I'm not super convinced, but I think Spirit of the Shark. I mean, it looks better than the Spirit of the Bat right now, so I'm still interested to see where they take Rogue with this. It is encouraging some kind of combo gameplay with Rogue, which is good. Like, they seem to have been so scared of anything that involves, like, combos for a while. And I don't mean combos the mechanic, I just mean, like, rather than being hedged on like having powerful combinations. I suppose they were kind of doing that with Death Rattle too.
Yeah, like they're always a little bit worried of like some degenerate nonsense.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
that's their worry. They've learned the hard way, right?
yeah, you can see it's to do with minions as well. I think that's an important part, so that there aren't like any crazy interactions with like Spirit of the Shark, prep, eviscerate, something nonsense like that, right? That would be pretty scary. But with the minions, it could be pretty interesting. I'm silent or quietly optimistic about Spirit of the Shark, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, on its paper, I don't think it's that good a card, but I think it has potential to enable good things.
Yeah.
Okay, and then each class will also have a champion of that class, which is a legendary, and we assume it'll be a minion, very much like we had with the Scientist for Boomsday. So for Mage, we have Hexlord Malakras. It's an 8 mana, or he is an 8 mana 5/5 legendary minion with Battle Cry. Add a copy of your opening hand to your hand, except this card. So no infinite Hexlord Malakras value. How do you feel about this? I mean,
I just think it's absolutely terrible. Okay, so as much as like you know me, I'm a lover of value and like cards that give you more cards. My core problem with this is, so you start off with the premise, right? Of okay, it adds the cards in your opening hand to your deck. Then you ask yourself, okay, but what cards do I want in my opening hand?
Yep.
And majority of the time, the cards you want in your opening hand are low cost, early tempo vibe cards, right?
Yeah. Low value.
Low value,
high.
low like early game, 1-drop, 2-drop vibes, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one nice interaction is it doesn't replace your hand. Okay, I just thought of a super weird thing. With Quest Mage, you theoretically get the quest back in your hand every single time. So you can theoretically repeatedly complete the quest. Now, I'm not talking about some OTK combo Quest Mage. I'm just talking about like a Quest Mage deck, which I don't know why you wouldn't have the combo. But theoretically here, you can complete the quest multiple times. Theoretically. But
outside of like that kind of interaction, like I say, like the cards you want in your opening hand are not cards you want after turn 8. So therefore, I think like 8 mana 5/5, I just don't think it's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, for this to get the payoff, like let's look at that scenario as well. For this to get the payoff, you want to have some high value cards in your opening hand. If you have these high value cards in your opening hand, they're probably not going to have any interaction until turn 5 or 6, let's say. And how do we get away with not having any interaction until turn 5 or 6, or basically having to top deck every single interaction? Yeah, you don't really.
Yeah,
you don't get away with that in
Hearthstone. That's my problem with it.
So that's my
unless
problem,
the meta becomes super duper slow.
Yeah, but like I don't even think Mage is good in that super duper slow meta. Like you need to like, I don't know. You need to like lab recruiter this or some nonsense. Right? Hexlord Malakras, you get lab recruiter in your opening hand. Then you lab recruiter the Hexlord Malakras. Then you can have lots more Hexlord Malakras in your deck.
If that becomes a deck.
Yep. And then you have infinite quests, because you just keep getting quests. If you're playing as in Quest Mage for some unknown reason. So yeah, I'm not sold on Hexlord Malakras. Like I don't want to. When I first looked at it, I was like, "Ooh, it's gonna be interesting to make the decision of like, maybe this card isn't that good to keep, because it isn't really what I want in the early turns. But I'll keep it because when I play Hexlord Malakras, it's gonna give me an extra win condition in this matchup. But then I was like, yeah, it's like a tech card for super slow matchups in that scenario, because in every other scenario,
that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Anyway, so not really a huge fan. It is an 8 mana 5/5 that does draw you 3-4 cards. I mean, you should like that theoretically, Pandemonia, but
yeah.
Okay. Next up, we are moving on to just the normal class cards now that we have. So we have a couple of them. Savage Striker. This is a Druid minion. It's 2 mana, 2/3, common with Battle Cry. Deal damage to an enemy minion equal to your hero's attack. So 2-drop for Druid. I mean, they're trying to force out wild growth.
It's an interesting 2-drop. Problem is, it's basically savagery on a minion.
Yeah, but for no extra cost.
I mean, it's true. It costs 1 more mana, and you get a 2/3.
No, I'm saying
But
like
ultimately,
this costs no mana.
how much play does savagery see?
Well, none. But like savagery costs a card and mana. Technically, Savage Striker doesn't cost any mana or a card, right? Because you're getting a 2 mana 2/3, which is like what you'd expect. I mean,
yeah.
I like theoretically this effect could be pretty good, but how hard is it to actually make it work? Like hero power, it's 1 extra damage. I'm not excited about that. I'm not playing a 2-drop on turn 4 in order to get the damage. I mean, later in the game with Malfurion, you can do 3 damage. That's not unreasonable.
Yeah, I mean, Claw means that like on turn 3 you can do this and kill a 4-drop?
Yeah, or like 2-drops maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the card having some reasonable value, but I'm just not really sure I want to play any of the cards that facilitate it except Malfurion. And if I'm playing Malfurion, do I really need to play Savage Striker? I don't know. I don't see the Druid deck right now, but once again, I won't be surprised to see them pushing Druid in a very different direction, because it has so many powerful decks as it is right now.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Baited Arrow, a card we've discussed quite a lot actually. It's a hunter spell, 5 mana, common, deal 3 damage, and it has Overkill, summon a 5/5 Devil Saw. So Overkill is one of the new mechanics. Overkill works that the Overkill condition that you have to satisfy is to deal more damage than is necessary to the minion or hero that you are killing. So in this case, if you use Baited Arrow to deal 3 damage to a minion that has 2 health, you will activate the Overkill and get a 5/5 Devil Saw. If you deal 3 damage to a minion that has 3 health, 4 health, 5 health, you will not get the Devil Saw. So that's basically the way it
has to hit through,
works.
basically.
Yeah, you need to do more damage than they have health.
Yeah.
So, bearing that in mind, what are your thoughts on Baited Arrow?
So like I first thought of it, I was like, oh, this sounds pretty decent, cool. But then I thought about it, I'm like, okay, if you wanted to overkill and get the 5/5, right, you have to only deal 2 damage.
Or 1, but yeah.
Or 1, okay. So now, the card that, I mean, we were discussing it's similar to is Bane of Doom.
Yep.
But instead of obviously a random demon, you get guaranteed a 5/5 Devil Saw. But then for Hunt, so I kind of even then thought, no, but wait, this is so very similar to it's very similar to Flanking Strike. And for those of Flanking Strike is the 4 mana Hunter spell that says deal 3 damage to a minion, summon a 3/3 wolf.
Yep.
So now for 2 mana extra, you would have to deal 1 less damage to a minion.
Well, 1 mana extra.
Well, 1 mana extra. You're dealing 1 less damage, but you get a 5/5, and can potentially go face if you so wish.
Yeah, I mean
that's kind of where the potential benefit comes in, right?
Yeah, I think maybe there's some potential in like.
Now, is that good enough?
I mean, maybe in some kind of spell hunter decks. It is another
I think
tool.
5 mana is a little bit expensive.
It definitely is, and it's going to require help to kill anything at the 5 mana point of the game, right? Either you're playing an opponent like Zoo or something where they have lots of small minions you can overkill, or alternatively, you have to like trade something in and then play the Baited Arrow. So I think it needs help to kill most things at its mana cost, and that's going to be a bit of a concern. But if you are ahead on board with the Hunter and like you can afford to do that, I think it might work out pretty well. But cards that are only like pretty good when you're ahead on board are, sketchy at best. You have to be ahead or like not too far behind that you actually have a minion that you can overkill. And so, I mean, I'm not super excited about Baited Arrow, but I don't think it's too terrible. I don't know. Maybe if the Spell Hunter archetype has support, and more support.
Yeah. I just think 5 mana is a bit too expensive for what you get. But we'll see. That, like you say, the fact that you have to be ahead, ugh.
I don't know. I mean, if it was 4 mana, deal 2 damage and get a 5/5.
Oh,
and,
that'd be good, yeah.
And the 2 damage had to kill something, let's say. Like,
yeah. I think that would be good.
I think that would be too good though. Like, which tells me maybe 5 mana is the right mana cost for it. I don't know.
Sure.
Very difficult to say at this point, actually, I think. I think this card is quite difficult, partly because it includes the overkill mechanic, and that is a new mechanic. So, I mean, just looking at the mechanic itself, like, how are you feeling about that? We'll talk a little bit about Soul Thraze, the other overkill card, a little bit later. You want to talk about overkill now, or just after that, actually?
Well, I mean, we might as well talk about it now, because it kind of goes the same flavor. I mean, overkill has the potential. The problem is with mechanics like overkill, you've got to constantly ask yourself, is the card good without overkill?
Kind of. I actually don't.
That's what you're gonna find. Like, do you have to trigger the overkill for it to be good?
From what we're seeing, I don't think that. I don't think that that's the question you have to ask with overkill. I think the question is actually, how often will I be able to activate this? Like, it's a question of, like, you have to go through your mind. Remember a lot of the board states you're in. How often is there a board state where you can overkill things with this? Like, I actually think that's the bigger question. Because from what we've seen so far from the 2 overkill cards, I think they're always going to be bad if you don't overkill.
Yeah.
Like, the overkill payoff seems to be so big. It's not like a small payoff. They're weighting the payoff heavily on the overkill side. Like, if we look at Baited Arrow, right? If this was like 5 mana, deal 4 damage, overkill get a 2/2 or 3/3, like, we'd say, yeah, that's fine, because if you don't overkill, it's not so bad. But at 3 damage, essentially 2 damage, to actually get the 5/5, we're like, nah, no. So, I mean, I think I think it depends on, like, which side of the overkill they're weighting, is kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see them mostly heavily weighted onto the, like, you have to fulfill the overkill for this card to be good.
Yeah.
And then it's a case of looking at board states. I mean, it's a very board-centric mechanic, and I think that's good, because Hearthstone itself is a very tempo-oriented game, and that, like, it makes sense, you know, not like Inspire, if we're talking about Grand Tournament again, which wasn't really a mechanic that actually suited Hearthstone, I don't think, because it was so slow.
I think it's sort of a different approach of, like, a different angle of ask, like, approaching this card good is, currently Cube Hunter is a deck, right? Now, like, sure, it's a very different card, but, like, can you imagine playing a deck with this instead of Devasaur Death Rattle shenanigans?
No, but I think that I don't really think that's necessarily fair, because this card would be taking up a slot for my, like, Death Rattle synergies, which doesn't really make sense. Like,
no, I'm saying, yeah. So
I don't think that this card makes sense. Yeah, it's a different deck, I think.
Well,
unless you start overkilling your eggs, but unfortunately they're 3 health and not if they were 2 health eggs, then you could get 5 mana, get 2 Devil Swords, which wouldn't be terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
it's not great though.
So my question then would be, obviously we need to see more cards, but then will this actually fit into a hunter deck? Right?
I mean, that's why I was talking about Spell Hunter, right?
Yeah.
Or Bomb Hunter. You can overkill your bombs.
Yeah. So
overkilling bombs? Yeah.
What? No, but those are 0. Oh, right.
Those 0/2s. You can overkill
wow.
them. Anyway,
Sure,
that's stretching a little bit. I think it's definitely something that isn't just fitting into our existing archetypes, except maybe Spell Hunter. And I mean, that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's look at the other hunter card we have, and that's Springpaw. Springpaw's a 1 mana 1/1 beast. It's common. It has Rush and Battle Cry. Add a 1/1 Lynx with Rush to your hand. The Lynx will also be a beast, I assume. So 1 mana 1/1 Rush. How good is that? I mean, also being a beast helps a lot in Hunter.
So 1/1 Rush is like Stone Tusk worse.
Yeah.
It's basic, and then there's a skater bot, which is a mech.
But it has magnetic, so
yeah, it has magnetic as well, which is obviously
it scales a bit better into the late game.
So the fact that this card 1 mana 1/1 Rush is like not great. The fact that it adds another 1/1 rush, I think, makes it better. But then the kind of discussion comes in. Some of the 1/1s we've seen previously are things like Alley Cat, which summoned a 1/1 immediately.
Yeah.
So now the question is 1 mana 1/1 that summons another 1/1 better than a 1 mana 1/1 with rush that gives you another 1 mana 1/1 with rush in your hand?
That are both beasts.
Yeah, they're both beasts. The argument here is, so Alley Cat gives you better board presence, but like Spring Paw gives you better control of the trades, and also allows so that, like sometimes your Alley Cat and the other 1/1 will just die immediately, right? Whether it's hero power or whatever.
Yeah, they won't get good trades.
Get trades. Where Spring Paw potentially
allows
allows
the
you
trade.
Force you the trades.
It's a ping for Hunter, but like even if we look at Hunter's other ping options, right? We have on the Hunt, I think it's called, the 1 mana spell that deals 1 damage and summons a 1/1. I mean, then you're at least getting a 1/1 left on the board, even if it doesn't have rush. Like the first damage you're dealing is essentially like rushing this in, and that can also go around taunts. So, like at first, my look at Spring Paw, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Getting 2 1/1s for 1, and then I started comparing it to, like you say, Alley Cat, another 1-drop that is similar in a way is Firefly. I mean, you get 2
candle shots,
1/2s. Yeah, candle shots, and I just don't see it comparing very well against like those cards. I mean, maybe it helps fill out an extra 1-drop slot in an aggressive Hunter, but rush, you're not really helping. Putting 1-drops in your hand, not really helping. I mean, are we finally talking Quest Hunter? That's where you're putting 2 1-drops in your hand. Is like you have to draw less cards to complete your quest. I don't know. I think that's the most reasonable application I see for it, which is a bad side.
Yeah. Also, another thing I was thinking is, how often do you actually want 1 mana 1/1 rush? So, like on turn 1, you probably just can play as 1 mana 1/1.
Yeah, unless they played something with 1 health, which is almost
quite uncommon.
Not many decks do that. Like with Firefly, decks don't do that.
So it's kind of a weird spot, because then it probably will just die. Whereas, like, do you want to be playing a 1 mana 1/1 rush much later in the game either? The answer is probably no.
Yeah, I mean, only really if you can combine it with some other beast synergy, like Crackling Razormaw. But then you're playing 3 mana to get, like, at best case, poisonous or plus attack or something that enables it to kill something, and, like, the 1/1. I'm not really that convinced by that. I mean, there's Toxicologist as well. I think it is. No, sorry, that's
Toxicologist is the one that buffs your...
Yeah, no. I'm thinking the 4 mana one that gives your 1-drops poisonous. Toxmongo.
Oh, Toxmongo or some nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, Toxmongo, Spring Paw, you get 2, like on turn 6, you can kill 2 things. I don't know. I'm trying to make this work. These are the ways I can maybe see it working. Maybe with Dire Frenzy, and then like you can, I don't know, you can shuffle it in afterwards, and you get 1 mana 4/4 rushes. I'm still not enjoying any of these ideas.
That doesn't feel like a good idea. Like, that doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't. I mean, we're talking about some...
bad. It's like, very degrees of...
Yeah. At first, this looks like, oh, this seems like a decent card for a lot of Hunter decks. And then when you start digging deeper and deeper, it seems like, no, this is a card that only fits in weird Hunter decks. So, I don't know. I'm not that convinced by Spring Paw. We're not going to be rating anything or anything like that, because it's way too early, having only seen a couple cards in expansion. But I think Spring Paw is a card that deceives at first about how good it might be.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Pyromaniac. Pyromaniac is a 3 mana 3/4 mage rare minion. It has, whenever your hero power kills a minion, draw a card. So we have that.
Gothic Jaina?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the idea. Hero power killing stuff. That was my first thoughts, and I thought, actually, in a control deck, you don't necessarily want to be always drawing extra cards. Like, if you think about the mage decks like that, I mean, the best purpose of this is actually just being a 3 mana 3/4 a lot of the time. So you can play it on curve early in the game, because you kind of need minions to fill those slots if you're playing Spell Mage, big Spell Mage. So maybe it kind of fits there. Mage has actually quite a few 3 mana 3/4 options though. The other deck that this kind of possibly sticks out to me for is Odd Mage, because there your hero power is dealing 2 damage, so much more likely to kill minions. And obviously being a 3 mana, it could still fit in that deck.
Yeah, the problem is like on the one side, the minion body, the 3 mana 3/4s feels like it might belong in like a tempo-y deck, but then the effect is more of a control effect, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe
so
it gives
feels
your
like it's
tempo
stuck in
deck
between,
fuel,
right?
but your tempo deck doesn't really want a hero power.
I mean, on turn 5, you don't want to be playing the 3/4 pinging something. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah, well, even on turn 4, you don't want to ping something, right? Like, if you just play this on turn 3 and then turn 4, you don't really want to ping something.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless maybe you're odd...
Odd mage. Oh boy.
I mean, like that seems to be. If you look at Odd Mage, we got like the Black Cat. It's a 3 mana 3/3 that draws you a card. So maybe that's kind of the direction they're trying to take Odd Mage, and this kind of like, yeah, I can refill my resources and keep grinding you away with this hero power.
I guess on then turn 4, pinging for 2 is then not as bad, right?
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing with the other 2 mana. That's because you only have odd cards, but
2/1 drops. Although,
why do you have 2 1-drops in your hand then? Yeah.
Rip Mana Worm.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what that's. I mean, maybe it's like you can play like a shooting star or something like that for like your DIY swipe.
Well, that can help to set up their ping, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Like I don't. The card is fundamentally not bad. I just don't see where it goes. But I mean, I think we're gonna have to see some big changes to Mage because the class is not looking particularly good right now. So I think we can expect a couple more decent Mage cards, but Pyromaniac is probably not enough to push an archetype by itself.
Yeah, well, more cards. Plenty more cards to come in.
Okay, well, enough Pyromaniac. On to the next card. We have Immortal Prelate. Immortal Prelate is a 2 mana 1/3 epic paladin minion with Death Rattle. Shuffle this into your deck. It keeps any enchantments. The interesting wording there is like enchantments. You would imagine this means more than just like spells that are cast on it. So if we're like buffing it or like debuffing it with something like an Eldor Peacekeeper, I imagine those kind of interactions also work on it.
Yeah, like somebody, I saw some people post things like topsy-turvy. Like if you somehow get its attack to 0, if you get its attack to 0 and let's say play topsy-turvy, whenever you play it immediately dies. Okay. Like some of the weird interactions, right? So like it just shuffles into your deck, so you never fatigue, right? Because why not?
Interesting.
But yeah, so it keeps anything from spells, if somehow you play a Keleseth like buff, because obviously playing Keleseth with this guy is going to be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
But lots of combo shenanigans. I mean, the question is, how many buffs do you need to put on it for it to be good?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with me is to me with this card is that it doesn't really seem like it fits a buff paladin deck, which is immediately what you think, because you'd rather just play that 2 mana Murloc instead that gives you the spells back to your hand immediately, which is going to help you kind of complete the quest as fast as possible if you're going for the quest paladin type deck. It seems to me like maybe this is more of just a card meant to help you grind out games. Like if you're buffing it a little bit with something like Spike Ridge Steed, Blessing of Kings, then it can be a pretty powerful tool later in the game. Obviously very susceptible to silence, but if you have 2 of these, they have to use their 2 silence effects on them. Not a lot of decks ever have more than 2 silence effects, so I don't actually think that's something we have to worry about too much.
It's just a 2 mana 1/3, and then the thing is the chance of you getting the payoff later. So 2 mana 1/3, as we know, is pretty bad, which doesn't do anything immediately. And then it's a case of it shuffles, and then you still have to draw. You have to have buffed it, and then still draw it later for it to be good.
Yeah.
So I'm not completely sold on this card. I don't know about you.
No, I think the one interesting interaction is with Christology. It's a way in order to kind of ensure you draw it if there is like some specific set of buffs you want to get on this, and you know, to get the combo together, all you have to do is draw your buffs, which we don't really have a good way to do, and then you have to draw the prelate, which we can do with the prelate, which we can do with the Christology. So maybe that's a thing for like some kind of control paladin. I mean, with Chavala, you are encouraged to play spells, so having big spells like Spikeridge Steed are beneficial with the prelate. I mean, maybe that's kind of the idea they're going for. This is like one of the minions you have in the deck. But yeah, realistically, this whole grindy thing, like I don't know how many games are going to go that late that you really need to be grinding it out with prelates. And the problem is if you buff it up too much, it dies very slowly, and then you still take fatigue damage in the meantime whilst it's dying.
Yeah, so I will say though, from a design, it seems to be one of the more interesting. Like, it seems to be an interesting design.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see like what we can do with it and see how we can maybe experiment with it. So I agree, it is pretty interesting from a design perspective. Okay, next up we have Time Out. Time Out is a 3-mana paladin spell. It's a common. Your hero is immune until your next turn. So most kind of obviously compared to Ice Block. Yeah. But the big difference here is you can't really set it up in the same way you could set Ice Block up a couple turns before the problem was going to occur. You have to know the problem is going to occur that next turn. So it doesn't protect you against sudden burst from your opponent. You know, some sudden Leroy combos or like any kind of big combos with like Wind Fury. Anything where they get like a ton of damage that's unexpected. Timeout's not going to help you there. But the advantage that Timeout has is that it does protect you from damage that turn immediately. And obviously during your opponent's next turn. So what this means is you can like cast Timeout, hit one of their big minions with a weapon and not take damage, and then you still immune, so they can't really attack your face for that turn. But you also like you're giving them a stage where they can just develop more, so you kind of have to deal with that development as well.
Yeah, I mean, basically the only plus side it has over Ice Block is that the fact that you're immune. So it's not like Ice Block where you can pop them on one.
Yeah.
You know, you stay your life total stays fixed until next turn, basically.
Yeah.
So that's like the main difference that makes this. But I don't know. You know, control deck feels like it's probably going to be too slow.
I mean, you could combine it with, let's say, a healing effect that turn. So you go like Timeout plus a healing effect. We can't do Lay on Hands, unfortunately, because it doesn't really work for the mana. Like, if this was 1 mana cheaper, that would make a big difference for Lay on Hands. But I don't know what other healing effects we're really going to use. But let's say you go Timeout and Timeout and then you heal yourself a bit. Maybe you use your weapon as well. That's like the best value you can get. And then the next turn you follow up with like Equality Consecration, right? You need to follow up with a really strong board clear that turn after. And I think after a while, that play pattern is going to become a little predictable and people are going to play around it better. You know, we're looking at a meta right now where like there's quite a lot of carnivorous cubes. You know, we've got quite a few death rattles in the meta. And when you have those, you can play around that Equality Consecration a lot better. You just like cube one of your value minions and then, okay, they Equality Consecrate. You're left with 2, let's say, Mountain Giants or Devil Saws on the board. So I think that's going to mean Timeout might only have a brief time in the sun. But yeah, overall, I think it is a pretty interesting card and definitely showing that they're trying to push Paladin in a more kind of control direction. Next up, we have Surrender to Madness. Surrender to Madness is a 3-mana epic priest spell. Destroy 3 of your mana crystals. Give all minions in your deck +2/+2. This just seems extremely terrible. I mean, this is like this is one of the worst cards I feel like I've ever seen. I don't understand. There's no way that 3 mana and then 3 mana for every single turn afterwards until you're at 4 mana is worth it. Like, it's not just 3 mana. Like, this costs so much mana.
Like, you know what the worst part is even if it didn't have the drawback of destroy your mana crystals, I'm still not sure if that's good enough.
I think because you can play 2 of them in the deck, the consistency that it offers, I think it would be good enough. You got Shadow Visions to force yourself to draw it. I think it would be good enough if it didn't destroy mana crystals at all.
Like a 3 mana, just give your whole deck +2/+2. Do you think that'd be good enough?
I think there's some priest decks that could probably get away with playing that.
But the destroy mana crystals obviously
the destroy your mana crystals thing is so horrible. Like, destroying 1 mana crystal is really bad. That's like giving your opponent a wild growth they didn't have to cast. Like, how sad are you when your opponent casts wild growth? Now imagine they got that for free. Like, and now you're giving them 3 wild growths. So you're giving them a wild growth and a nourish, and all you're getting is like some stats. Like, and they didn't have to cast those cards.
You did nothing on your turn 3.
Yeah, they didn't have to cast those cards. So that's an extra card they're drawing. So it's like they played Wild Growth for 0 mana that drew them a card. And then they played Nourish for 0 mana that drew them a card. That's how far behind you are. Like, what? No. That is not worth +2/+2. It's all the minions in my deck, not even my hand. So no combo shenanigans, like late in the game. It has to be in your deck. So no. Surrender to Madness, just no.
Yeah, I think we've covered that one.
Yeah. And next up, we have Cannon Barrage. Cannon Barrage, a 6 mana rogue epic spell.
This is the card you like.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Cannon Barrage deals 3 damage to a random enemy. Repeat this, or repeat for each of your pirates. So we've seen this kind of repeat effects before in like cards like Defile. The important thing to note is, like, if you have 1 pirate on the board, Cannon Barrage is going to deal 3 damage and then 3 damage again, because the first 3 damage is not conditional on anything. So you're getting like 3 damage plus 3 times the number of pirates you have, each in separate instances. So I think, Cannon Barrage is something that at first doesn't seem very good. I mean, how much damage do you feel like you need to get in order for Cannon Barrage to be good?
Okay, so just getting 3 damage is bad. Getting 6 damage is very meh. You'd have to, I would say, at least 9 damage plus, which means you need at least 2 pirates or more in play to cast when you cast this.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a bit too difficult to do. And if you're doing that, you're probably in a good position, right? If your pirates are on the board uncontested, I feel like you're probably in a good position.
Yep.
That's my feeling.
It does seem like that. I mean, the big thing, obviously, is that this is a rogue card, so we can use prep to make it a lot cheaper. And that's going to be a pretty big impact. When you're getting this for 3 mana, all of a sudden 9 damage for 3 mana is pretty good. And I think because this hits any enemy, that at first makes you think like, oh, it's going to be bad for clearing the board. But I actually think that makes it better, because what happens is if you're playing like an aggressive pirate deck, you can actually, you can just like clear the board. You're fighting for the board. That's the goal of your deck. And then all you can do is you can actually Cannon Barrage as kind of a finisher in a way. So if you're playing 6 mana to deal 9 damage to your opponent's face, that's pretty good for like an aggressive deck's finisher option. So I think Cannon Barrage could actually be pretty insane in some aggressive rogue decks. I think it's
how
a card
aggressive though, but you're still having to clear the board.
No, but like you're still a rogue deck, so you're still trading with like your minions and stuff. And this is an expansion set in Stranglethorn Vale. That's where the Gurubushi Arena is set, as we mentioned before. So it is an expansion we can expect more pirates in as well. So I'm not basing this on just the fact that we have like South Sea Deckhand, South Sea Captain, and those are pretty much the only pirates I want to play right now in Rogue anyway. So I'm assuming we're getting a couple more pirates, probably 1 or 2 more in Rogue at least. And if we get enough that warrant playing in the deck, then I think Cannon Barrage will actually fit into that deck pretty well.
Okay, I would be curious to see if this actually they make the cut in an aggressive deck. Like I almost want to see your aggressive pirate deck with prep and this card work. Yeah. Like I'm not sold by it, but you've convinced me that the card is not utterly terrible. It's just terrible.
I think it's very easy to underestimate these kind of rogue cards.
Yeah, sure.
And it is a card that very much depends on the board states that you're going to be seeing, and without knowing all the rest of the pirates, it's very impossible for us to actually know what those board states are going to be like. Next up, we have Reign of Toads. Reign of Toads is a 6 mana shaman spell. It's a common. Summon 3/2/4 toads with taunt, and it has overload 3 as well. So you're getting a lot of stats for your mana, aren't you, Pandemonia?
Yeah, I mean, you are getting basically, that's basically 12 stats for 6 mana. But I mean, ultimately it's 9 mana considering you basically paying the overload the following turn. So, stats-wise, it's pretty decent stats, I think. I mean, it's a little bit similar to Feral Spirits, where you paid 3 mana for two 3s with overload 2. This is kind of like the upgraded version because the minions are a bit stronger. You get one more of it, and it's got one more overload. So like this is basically Feral Spirit's bigger brother, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of weird that Wolves' bigger brother is Toads, but Toads definitely seems to be the theme for Shaman here. Well, I mean, it's Toads. Toads are different to frogs, technically. So yeah, I mean, Toads seem to be the theme for Shaman. We're guessing that, as you might have seen on the previous screen, that big toad that we saw in the cinematic is probably going to be the Shaman lower. So yeah, we're expecting more toad-themed stuff. I don't know if there's really going to be any synergy with that. I imagine they're beasts. But so I don't really think there's any synergy there. I think the biggest synergy here is actually that this card has specifically Overload 3. And Overload 3 synergizes very well with the Shaman Spellstone. So for a kind of control Shaman deck, this might actually be pretty good. It helps you weaken up your opponent's board as well to set up for stuff like
Lightning Storm,
Volcano. Volcano. An interesting interaction I actually just thought of is if you play Electra and then Reign of Toads on 9, you actually get 6 2/4 taunts.
And the 3/3.
And the Electra,
that's pretty decent, actually. I suppose I could get behind that.
I mean, Electra's already decent in that deck. And then you're upgrading your Spellstone twice if it's in your hand. That's actually pretty good. Like, it's actually important. The 3, like, in my experience from playing Overload Shaman, it's actually quite difficult to get the overloads to line up because they don't overlap. So if you
end up wasting the overload.
So like it requires 3 overloads to upgrade it, right? If you play a 2 overload and then a 2 overload, you're only upgrading it once. So it's the same as if you overloaded for 3, but actually in terms of your mana you've lost, you overloaded for 4. So when you can overload in like increments of 3 and like and 1 is also pretty good because it helps you fit in all your 2s, like your lightning storms and volcanoes. It's very good. So I like Reign of Toads for that deck, and I think it actually might be pretty reasonable, but we'll have to see what the rest of the Shaman cards are. I think we can expect some decent Shaman cards.
But I think like so far of the cards we've looked at, this is kind of the card that sticks up to me as one that this is pretty playable. Without seeing the rest of the cards, I kind of go, this is a pretty decent card that I can probably expect to see play. You know, whereas the other ones are a lot more dependent on, what else is spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, the other cards to compare this to is just Earth Elemental. There you get a 5 mana 7/8 with Taunt, and that's also Overload 3, right? I think so.
Yeah, that's Overload 3, I think.
So, I mean, that one's also, like, you're getting less stats, 1 less mana. It's not a terrible comparison. I mean, the big difference there is that obviously Reign of Toads is susceptible to the AoE, Earth Elemental is susceptible to the single target removal. So in these kind of defensive overload decks, you can at least have some more flexibility to choose depending on what the meta has more of. But I like Reign of Toads.
Yeah, it's a 5 mana 7/8, Overload 3.
Yeah. I know that from playing Overload Shaman entirely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But at least in Overload Shaman, it's another target to Ancestral Recall. Or not, whatever, the 2 mana thing that gives the Death Rattle. I think it's...
Yeah, no, it's not Ancestral... Is it Ancestral Recall?
I always get that confused with the old 3 mana one that puts stuff from your hand. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Let's move on to Void Contract. Void Contract is an 8 mana epic demon spell. Destroy half of each player's deck.
This is just a giant meme.
Is it? Isn't it just like the most horrible anti-combo deck card ever? Like, I hate Shadowwalk Shaman. I'm not even going to take I'm going to just, like, I'll have Demonic Project and Void Contract. And then I Demonic Project, and if it's not in their hand, I'm going to Void Contract and get it in their deck. Ugh.
And then you're gonna get super sad and tilted where you kill half the deck and they still have all the pieces and you still lose. Like,
Yeah.
you
I
spent 8
just,
mana doing nothing.
I mean, on turn 8, how many cards have we drawn? So we've drawn 8 plus the 4. So we're at 12, 13. So that's 12 to 15 cards. So you're getting 7 cards from their deck, let's say, with Void Contract.
Oh, yeah.
Seven to 10 cards. Maybe they shuffled some in or something like that. So you get like 7 to 10 cards with Void Contract, and you lose 7 to 10 of your own deck. I mean, that doesn't seem like a good deal to me.
Well, I mean, it's in Warlock, right? So maybe you lose less cards because you've been drawing more cards.
Sure.
Hero power?
Let's say they lose 8 cards, you lose 5. Like, are you really happy with that? Because they're still getting to fatigue after you.
I'm less worried about that. I'm more worried about the fact that I'm spending 8 mana to do nothing.
Sure.
That's kind of my concern. Like, I'm not so much concerned about reaching fatigue so much as I am about dying.
I mean, okay, let's say we get a turn where we can play this, right? We've got up a Void Lord from our Possessed Lackey or something like that. So we've got something on the board, whatever. We're not worried about dying right now. Like, that's an obvious problem with this card, but like, how many cards do you actually have to get to kind of be happy with it? That's the big question I have. Like, I don't see the only scenarios I'm happy with it is where I get to play it against a combo deck and actually hit a combo piece.
Yeah.
And then do you even know if you discarded it? I don't know.
Yeah, first of all that. The other problem though is I'm just looking at it from the point of chances are this goes in a control style deck, right? So chances are you're still running Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
Yeah. So you have to draw that.
Sorry?
Yeah, you have to draw Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
So what I'm saying is you don't want to be destroying half your deck when you have a card like Blood Reaver Gul'dan still in your deck, right?
Exactly.
Like, you don't want to risk that chance either. So
I think against combo decks you might do it where the win condition is still less likely for them, maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
But I can see somebody playing this against a combo deck, destroying combo pieces and still losing.
Yeah, or like I'm saying is, like, say play against Malygos Druid, and by pure like the last 5 cards in the deck are, Malygos, Moonfire.
Yeah, or just some combination of the cards that still work to enable them to win.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking against Shadowwalk Shaman. Like, the Shadowwalk Shaman can still just beat you up. Like, we've seen Shadowwalk Shamans win enough games without having to actually do the combo.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Void Contract at all. I don't like the design, and that's my
8
thoughts.
mana. Well, that's the problem.
You don't like the value. I don't like the design. But a card I think we both kind of like a bit is Soul Thraze. Soul Thraze is a 6 mana 4/4 warrior weapon. It's an epic and it has overkill. You may attack again. So we've been over overkill and what that means, but in this case, if we look at it, if you have Soul Thraze and you attack a 3/3 and kill it, well, you can attack again and you can kill another 3/3, and then you can kill another 3/3, and then you can kill 4/4, and Soul Thraze would have lost all its durability at that point anyway. So the immediate card that I actually, as I was saying, why do they have 3/3s on the board? I was like, Spellstone. The Hunter Spellstone. Like, this comes down after that. You clear up the hounds, take a bunch of damage, but yeah. I mean,
the card this is similar to is, if you remember, Fool's Bane.
Yep.
That was a 5 mana 3/4 weapon that could attack heroes.
Yeah.
But it could attack as many times as you wanted in turn, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Isn't this just worse than Fool's Bane then? Because, like,
well, this is 5 mana for Fool's Bane was a 5 mana 3/4 weapon. This is 6 mana for a 4/4.
I know. So what I'm saying is, but in order to activate the overkill, you only get to deal 3 damage. So in that sense, it's like a 3/4. The difference being that you don't you can kill the 4/4. I suppose that probably makes it better, right? Like,
you can go face with it, right?
Yeah, but going face is probably not that relevant in a deck where we're paying 6 mana for a 4/4 weapon.
I mean, it's still 60 damage.
Yeah, but like
how
can I Reaper?
Like, even if you don't ever overkill, the fact that it's still a 6 mana 4/4 weapon means that it's 24 damage over 4 turns.
Yeah, but
And,
4 turns. That means we're getting the last damage on turn 9. Like, we're not an aggro deck.
Well, that's what I'm just thinking. Is there ever a world in which this?
No, it seems like you froze for a bit there, but I don't think this is going in any aggro decks. Like, it definitely seems like a deck that a card that needs to be used in
Goes
some
into
kind
like
of control deck.
with this weapon.
Oof.
I mean,
Okay,
sure, that's the obvious one, right? I mean,
just
obviously
give me a
this is.
sec. I'm gonna reconnect this. But yeah, I don't really see Sorceress fitting into any of those kind of aggro decks. I do think that it is like, even though you don't have to always activate the overkill, like Fool's Bane is like always having the overkill activated. Sorceress is like having the option to activate it in a way, but having the extra attack, which means you can kill the 4/4s, and I think that helps.
And like I say, I honestly think not to be underestimated is the fact that you can go face.
Yes,
like,
but like, I don't know. I mean, there's like Deadly Arsenal still in the game, right? That's a card that like.
It deals damage. Does it destroy a weapon though? I can't remember.
No. It deals damage weapons from your deck. It's like.
Oh right, yes.
But
What's it called?
Based on the Deadly Arsenal, based on the attack of the weapon. So if we're getting 4 from that, that's okay. So maybe this can fit in a deck with like Gore Howls.
This and
stuff
Gore Howl, yeah.
That was the other kind of synergy I thought of. I mean, it works with Forge of Souls. You can guarantee draw it if you want. I think the card has potential, but I actually don't think it's maybe as strong as it first seems.
Yeah. I think it's also, I mean, the Warrior's got a lot of options. I mean, remember, you've still got Super Collider. I mean, you've got Super Collider on 5 and you've got Gore Howl on 6. So this, I mean, sure, this is 6, but now it comes in. Super Collider has 3 charges. Gore Howl, obviously, it's got 1 durability, but its effect allows it to attack a bazillion times.
Well, I mean, clearly this is the one that's meant for Even Warrior, right? you laugh, but Even Warrior is actually a deck. Like, it has been a deck that has got like rank 1 legend at times. Really, it is a thing. Like, no, there were a couple people playing Even Warrior. I promise you.
When?
Like, it's not been very popular, but it gets to play the whole Dead Man's Hand thing. So, like, it's a deck that grinds excessively hard. Like,
I suppose, and Soul Threads and Deadly Arsenal are cards that allow you to grind excessively hard.
Yep. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily going to be the home for it, but it is a consideration.
Sure. I won't argue that.
Yeah. But Soul Threads are interesting. I mean, I think it's an interesting use of overkill, so I like that about it at least.
Yeah.
Putting it on a weapon like this. Okay, and then the final card we have is Sharkfin Fan. Sharkfin Fan is a neutral minion, a 2-mana 2/2 pirate. It's a common, and after your hero attacks, summon a 1/1 pirate. So immediately this sticks out to me for Rogue. It might be a little bit due to my Rogue bias, but also because that is the class that generally attacks the most with its hero because of the hero
and
power
also,
of the weapon.
I think that's the class that the Shark Fins,
the
team of the Shark Fins is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, like, I mean, this is the most Rogue neutral ever, basically.
Yeah, it's like they said Rogue Fan on the card, right? Like,
yeah, that's basically what Shark Fin is.
Yeah.
Or Shark Fan, whatever it is.
I mean, I don't think it reminds me a little bit of like Henchclan Thug, except that the curve doesn't really work out. Like, because it's on 2, it doesn't work out. Like, you can't dagger on 2 and then play this. Like, but I think maybe with some kind of aggro rogue decks, it could maybe work out.
Well, with Kingsbane.
Yes, but I'm not sure you want to play Kingsbane.
In a different class. I mean, if it's ever Candle Shot.
The problem with Kingsbane, right, is like the whole point of it is that you want to buff it. Let's say we're playing Kingsbane in aggro deck, which I don't really want to do anyway, but let's say we play Kingsbane on 1. We then have to attack on 2 with Sharkfin Fan, and then it's like 1 damage. And I don't think that's very efficient compared to what rogues can really do for damage. Like, you don't really want to be wasting the damage you would be getting from your hero power otherwise by instead having Kingsbane up in an aggro deck. So that's my concern. It does actually work for Even Rogue? Because you can dagger on 1, Sharkfin Fan on 2. I forgot about that, actually, in terms of the curve. And you can also play Preparation and Cannon Barrage in Even Rogue. And Even Rogue has also sort of kind of vaguely been a thing. Briefly.
No, wait.
It's not as much as Even Warrior. But
Wow, but even Warrior hasn't been that big.
I know, but I promise you, Even Warrior is like a thing amongst like warrior
Thing.
against warrior people. And even Rogue is like, I mean, it hasn't been anything on our radar for a very long time, but Sharkfin Fan actually does encourage me. Like,
I'm trying to work out what can we play. We can play Viscerate and Sap.
The problem with me is like all the other good pirates at the moment are odd. So like I'm trying to figure out what other pirates I'm playing in my Even Rogue deck.
Because Sati Deckhand.
We need a Naga Corsair back. Yeah, we need Naga Corsair, right? 4 mana, 5/4 that gives a weapon attack. That's actually would be the perfect pirate.
You've still got the Bloodsail Raider.
The 4 mana what?
The 2 mana 2/3. You still got the classic one. Bloodsail Raider.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And there's the Dread Corsair.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Dread Corsair. Maybe I'm kind of talking myself into even pirate rogue as an aggro deck.
And then it can run backstabs.
Yeah, I'm not so sure like, we necessarily want to run backstab. We can run Eviscerate though.
Eviscerate and Saps though.
Yeah, Saps good to get past taunts, but I think that's a flex slot in that deck that I'm making up in my mind right now. Maybe Sharkfin Fan actually. I'm actually more optimistic about it now that I just thought of the Even Rogue implications.
The fact that Even Rogue is making you excited makes me a bit like apprehensive about
I wasn't really that excited about the cards that we've seen, but actually I just changed my mind. Purely because of Even Rogue and Overload Shaman. Those are the two decks that have made me change my mind a bit about the cards. And I'm still a little bit optimistic about Cannon Barrage in more than just Even Rogue. But yeah, I mean, Sharkfin Fan. Let's talk about non-rogue context, right? Like, are there any other classes we want to do this?
Hunter. I would legitimately only say Hunter because you have Candleshot. That's literally like the only other class. I mean, you've got Lance Justice in Paladin. I'm not sure if that's...
And there's also like Candleshot and Eaglehorn Bow, so you can kind of like sometimes you might play Sharkfin Fan on 2 and then Eaglehorn Bow on 3. It's not ideal, but if you've got the tempo already, then you can kind of get away with that maybe.
Yeah, but how much tempo are you gonna have? Play a 2 mana 2/2 on
well,
turn 2.
I'm saying like let's say you played a 1-drop and they didn't, and then you got to trade your 1-drop into their 2-drop. And then you get to play a 2-drop on an empty board.
Sure.
They play their... or even if you're just going first, right? You play your 2-drop onto an empty board. Then they play their 2-drop. Let's say it's a 2/3. And then you play Eaglehorn Bow and kill their 2/3. Like, that's not unreasonable.
Sure, but like...
even when you miss... I'm trying to think of the scenarios where you miss the candle shot. Because I'm not putting it in my deck just for candle shot. That's the point.
But like, also I want to figure out how many times do you need to like... trigger it for it to be good, because obviously no triggers is bad, right? 2 mana 2/2 is bad.
Yeah.
Now is a 2 mana for a 2/2 and a 1/1 good?
It's possible.
I mean, because it's like Bloodfin Raptor, right?
I mean,
it's like Razorfin Raptor, Razorfin Hunter.
What?
It's like Razorfin Hunter, where you got the 3 mana for a 2/3 and a 1/1.
Yeah, I think that's different though, because you're still only getting 3/4 worth of attack. Yeah, you're getting 3/3. Like with the stats, and
so you might get more. So basically one trigger's fine.
The difference is that if you don't attack on 2, like that 1/1 pirate is still unable to attack immediately, right? So like you also, if you're only attacking on 3, you're splitting up when you can attack with that stats.
That's true as well. Yeah.
Which I don't know. I think Sharkfin Fan is encouraging for some other decks, but realistically, like. Other than even decks where you have weapons, like, or you have a hero power that can attack, like, even Druid is another crazy one I'm thinking of.
Even Pirate Druid!
The problem with Druid is it's not a weapon, right? So you can't equip it on 1 and then attack on 2. Like, you still have to, like, you have to play Sharkfin Fan and attack on 3. Play your, what's that, the Savage Striker on turn 2. I don't know what you did on turn 1. but other than just hero power. Yeah, so no, Druid is probably a no. I mean, it's really just Rogue, I think, that Shark been fan.
Yeah.
And maybe Hunter, as you mentioned. And
Okay.
we'll see what other classes get pirate synergy and weapons. Like, those are the
Sure.
defining factors, right? I mean, there could still be some other good weapons out there, and could be enough reasons to want these extra pirate bodies.
Yeah. So that's all the cards. So let's moving on now to another thing. So I know you're not as excited about it, but for a lot of players out there, one of the exciting aspects of the set is the new PvE content which they announced, which is the is the Rumble Run.
Yeah, it's just Rumble Run. You don't have
Rumble
to say
Run.
Rastakhan.
Yeah, I was about to say Rastakhan. I was about to get into it, but then I realized it doesn't have it. So this is, from what all the information we have, this is going to be quite similar in a lot of ways to the way Dungeon Runs and Monster Hunt has been. So, you're going to kind of pick a class. You're going to be able to build a deck, add more cards if you win, that sort of vibe. But this has obviously got the twist of that, it's the Rumble. So your opponents will be the 8 other classes that you didn't pick.
Yeah.
And each opponent is obviously a different team. And then you're going to have these things called shrines and champions. These shrines are going to basically be like totems.
Yeah.
And they're minions that give special effects in play, but they can be destroyed. And then if you destroy them, 3 turns later they respawn.
Yeah, they go dormant on the board in a
exactly.
Sherizen Darkness kind of way. We can see some of them here. They're 0 mana as well, so you can play them for free. I mean, if we look at the shrine, the shaman one, Tribute from the Tides, 0 mana, 0/3, your battle cries trigger 2 additional times. So we're going to expect shrines like this that interact in a way that kind of the passives almost did in some of the previous dungeon runs and stuff.
Yeah. And so they've basically said, because each team has 3 different shrines and there's 3 different champions for each class, that obviously the variety and diversity is going to be quite a lot there, and the replayability.
Yeah.
So that's obviously the thing as well.
Yeah, and it seems you also get teammates, which
you're going to pick cards that are your teammates, I think.
Yeah, which seems you're adding less cards to your deck at a time, rather than where you were picking those buckets of 3 or 4 cards. What was it, 3 or 4? I can't even remember
3.
now. Where you get the 3 cards at once. Now we're getting a single card at a time. Maybe we get multiple choices. I don't actually know.
I think it is. When I saw, I did see. I think it was a discover a legendary minion. Because they kept on speaking about wanting an overpowered, overpowered boss fights and things. So
yeah, I mean, I've got some of them on screen here. Parading Marshals, a 3 mana 3/3 start of game, draw this, battle cry, equip a true silver champion. So I mean, a 3/3 3 mana 3/3 that gives you a 4/2 weapon is pretty.
Yeah, if you look at that, the screenshot you're looking at, it's a discover option as well.
Yeah. So we're guessing we just pick one of them. Maybe instead of choosing champions and stuff, choosing treasures and stuff, we're choosing teammates, and then maybe still filling out our deck with other normal cards that already exist. Maybe that's
so
how
you
it's
earn prize fighters, pick your own teammate. Part of it's gonna be a tavern brawl. So yeah, this is the solo content. Once again, if you beat all that, you're gonna get a card back.
Yeah,
that's kind of become the standard now. No pack rewards, just cosmetic card back.
Yeah,
so
I mean they've made it clear that they're not gonna do packs. I mean the card back looks alright.
Yeah. So I mean, if you like a little bit of extra, something different from playing constructed, or this is some PvE content to take a bit of your time.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they can't really not do PvE content, but are you a little bit disappointed that it isn't maybe more puzzles instead?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll would run more puzzles, but I mean, the thing now is how much different PvE content can you really have? I was it would be nice to have something new, but in reality, what innovative PvE content can you really do? I mean, they've done the set work puzzles and they've done PvE. What other PvE stuff can they do?
Well, they could do co-op stuff. I mean, I can't talk to limitations of the game, the actual code base. But let's say they could do like co-op stuff. They could do like it's impossible for us to really say, right? It's saying like what other music can people possibly make? Like people will still make new music.
Yeah, sure.
And the design space is still wide enough that I think they can do a lot more.
So it's gonna release on the 13th of December. So that's gonna be 9 days after the set actually releases. Mm-hmm. So it's not gonna be available immediately with release. I'm not 100% sure why. Like, I'll assume it's basically finished. Maybe it's to test interactions in the servers first. I'm not.
I think it's also like a server load issue in a way. If you think about it, what you do when you have a person playing, like if these matches happen on a server, which I'm not actually sure they do, but I think they do, because that's where all the like drawing and stuff happens. If you think about PvP games, you put 2 people on one server, whereas PvE you put 1 person on one server. Like, I know that's literally not how it works, but like fundamentally it might be higher server load. That might have been their experience with releasing. And it might also just be because they don't want to split the player base. They want everyone experimenting for the first week or so, and then they release new content. I think it's really along those kind of lines. I don't think it's because they're still working on it necessarily.
I mean that I assume. Like, basically with these things, when they've announced it, they've basically finished with it.
For Hearthstone's case, yeah.
Yeah. For like
normal AAA games, that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
I mean, they announced games
that's coming in a month's time. Like, when they're saying it's coming out soon, generally in a relatively final form.
Sure. But I mean, I'm saying like at least Blizzard and Hearthstone, that they stick to the dates, right? Like, when they say it's coming on that day, it will come on that day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. I mean, overall, like, how do you feel about going back to kind of a more dungeon run type style?
I mean, the dungeon runs are fun. Like, they're fun. They're a bit of a break. I don't play too much of it. Obviously play mostly a constructed, but the last replayability is nice. I mean, that's obviously one of the things that the puzzles, Dr. Boom's the puzzles suffer from, is obviously once you solve them, there's not that much replayability. Whereas the dungeon runs, because of all the sort of different iterations that are possible, the different permutations, it offers a potential, like, a lot more replayability if you don't want to play things like ladder.
Yeah, I mean, for me, even though I'm somebody that did like the whole dungeon run challenge and it did kind of well on that, like I'm not really a single player content person. Like, I don't really play. I don't even think I've got the card backs from dungeon run because I did it on different accounts. Like, I didn't do it on my account.
Well, like I'm saying, is like the thing is, it's fun, free content.
Yeah,
I think that's still good.
Yeah, I think it's probably played by a wider player base than we think of. If you think of a lot of like mobile players, reaching 100 million players. Right? Yeah, I mean, like, this is the kind of content I would actually play as a casual player if I wasn't really playing Hearthstone.
Exactly.
Anyway, now speaking about things that are not for necessarily the super casual players, the pre-order. So the pre-order deals are changing a little bit this expansion. Do you want to just go over the numbers for us a little bit, Pandemonium? You've done some analysis to give us the hot take on how good and bad this is compared to something like Boomsday.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So basic summary: there's 2 bundle options. There's what they're calling the standard pre-order bundle, which is your $50 for 50 back for 50
backs.
$50 for 50 packs. And this time, you're going to get the special Shaman hero skin, Rastakhan, I think it is actually Rastakhan.
Yeah.
And you also get the card back, the pre-release card back. So that's kind of your standard. But now, instead of making a bigger bundle, they're making a smaller, they've called it a challenger bundle, where it's $20 for 17 packs, and then you get just the card back. So you don't get the hero skin. So this is a bit in contrast with Boomsday, where we had the $50 for 50 packs and got extra stuff, and then you had the mega bundle, which was $80 for 80 packs, the hero skin, and stuff. And it's important to note that the stuff there was not just a card, but it was also a golden legendary.
Yeah.
So these deals are substantially worse than the Boomsday.
Yeah.
And just to kind of give you a comparison, Boomsday if you bought the 2 pre-orders, you would have got 100. It would have been $130 US dollars for the 130 packs plus the stuff. So the 2 golden legendaries. Whereas
I
now
think it was 1 golden legendary, 1 normal legendary.
That was I think it was golden legendary for each. I think if I remember correctly.
Was it? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, but like got extra
plus
stuff.
The legendaries.
Yeah. Now, with Rastakhan's Rumble, if you want to get about 130 packs, if for the same, well, actually less packs, it will be $50 for the 50 packs, $20 for the 17 packs, and then to buy an extra 60 packs is going to cost you another $70. So that means you're going to spend $140 for 127 packs this time. So which means you get 3 less packs, and you're not getting the bonus legendaries.
Yep, and you're paying extra $10.
Yeah, and an extra $10. So, like, compared to Boomsday, it's not that great.
Yeah.
But you know, if you pre-order the $50 one is like standard. I mean, it's not as good as I think was it the Witchwood where we got 70 packs for $50.
Yeah.
I'm a bit sad they didn't continue that. I mean, after that, I think everybody was kind of hoping that would become the standard pre-order like deal.
Yeah, it got like a little bit worse than Boomsday, but they gave you some other shiny stuff to entice you.
Yeah, I mean the legendaries were kind of okay, and now it's just like now you get nothing.
Got worse.
Yeah, it's just flat out worse. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing.
Definitely.
But
yeah. But you know, Blizzard are still making lots of money from it.
I was going to say a small indie company that they're trying to still keep their business afloat.
And I mean, like we can see Hearthstone's still doing pretty well by the fact that as they recently announced, they reached 100 million players. So what this means is that if you log into Hearthstone from yesterday at the time of recording now, so if you log in anytime from now until the 11th of November, you'll get 6 Boomsday project packs. Maybe there's some people watching or listening to this that haven't actually realized that and haven't logged in yet. And everyone who logs in will also receive a quest to play against a friend in any mode for 100 gold. And you can repeat this 5 times. So you can get your 500 gold from just playing against a friend. This isn't like the Challenger Friend one. You don't both get. But you
only
still
the person who has it gets.
Yeah, only the person who has it gets. But you still get like 500 gold from that. So if you think about it, you can spend that on 5 Rastakhan Rumble packs if you can save up your gold. But,
I mean, that's a nice little token. I mean, 6 packs is nice. So it's nice that does give free stuff. You know, obviously people always complain and want more free stuff, but you know, they're giving us some free stuff, which is nice. So
yeah, some free stuff better than no free stuff.
No free stuff, exactly.
But also, I mean, yeah, they can probably pass it by marketing much easier after they, announcing that they got 100 million players.
Yeah.
That they're giving away free stuff. I mean.
And then sort of a minor thing. Also, they all came in the same patch. Those 4 classic cards that we spoke quite a while ago about.
Well, actually, it was on the last episode because we just had a break for a while. It was actually on episode 67 where we spoke about.
But the last time we spoke about them, they have now been released in the game. So you can craft them, you can open them, and you can play them in standard if that is your thing. If you do recall, I think most our reviews of them. They were all pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad cards.
I don't foresee not many of them. I don't think many of them are likely to see any competitive play. They're basically just fillers, I think, as far as I'm concerned. No,
they're pretty bad. I wouldn't expect to be playing many of them or seeing many of them in play. So yeah. There's also a lot of esports stuff that we've missed. We're not going to really catch it all up. I mean, there was HCT Champs. Lots of HCT events, but most recently as well, seeing as this is the episode after BlizzCon, we can at least talk about the HGG finals, which China managed to take over. Man, I forgot who were they playing in the finals. Brazil.
Was it Brazil?
Yeah,
I think
it was Brazil. Which a little bit of a surprise, seeing how poorly China have done in all the individual HCT events and stuff.
But I
But
think the best was, what's it, that line from Sato?
yeah, basically saying that like as individuals they make some weird and wonderful plays that don't always work out. Whereas with 4 of them, they can make sure that they only do the weird and wonderful plays that make sense, and they're not overthinking things in a way. I don't know if that's how it is. That's just a case of like that's how it fell. Maybe they worked well together as a team, better than other teams. It's really difficult to say. The format was interesting. I really didn't watch much of HCG.
It was like 9-deck format, but like there were bans, so it basically
like
became
a
a best of 5.
phase.
Yeah. But like
But like a pick ban phase where you basically like picked and banned the decks that were going up against each other in the same way. Like in the pick phase, let's say you'd pick 2 decks and you had to pick from one of those to play in your second game. It wasn't just Conquest, I don't think. If I'm not mistaken, I actually really don't. I watched the final.
I just know Norway were the favorites, and they got knocked. They got beaten by. I think I watched about that match. They lost to. Who did they lose to? I think Brazil. I think they got smashed by. They got smashed by Brazil.
Yeah, I mean the Brazil team is really strong as well. So. Yeah, I mean, well done to everyone there. Like, it's good that they have some event for BlizzCon. You know, having moved the HCT World Champs to...
Yeah, like, it's a bit disappointing. There's a lot less hype around it. Like, sure, there's the hype for the Hearthstone announcements, but from the Hearthstone esports side, there's been a lot less hype since, I mean, last year?
Well,
last year, they had all that invitational stuff, eh? Like,
yeah,
they had that...
I actually think I like what they're doing with BlizzCon and Hearthstone. Like, BlizzCon Hearthstone is inherently now meant to be more for their casual audience, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what HCG is. It's like you don't have to know any of the players in the pro scene. You just get behind a country. Like, you can just pick a country. Like, if you're watching the World Cup for football, like, you're going to see, I like Belgium. You don't have to know the Belgian players. Like, you can just pick the country because you like the friggin' chocolate or something stupid. Like, you don't have to like Brazil or know the Brazilian players to support them. So
it's definitely,
like, it's definitely HCG is meant to appeal to that more. Like, I don't really follow it, to be honest, as like somebody more involved in the competitive scene. But it's good. I think that they're keeping the competitive stuff a little bit aside and not like clogging up BlizzCon with too much stuff. That's what I'm saying. Like, you have limitations about how many days you can do it over, for example, that could get in the way of like them making format changes for Worlds. Like, let's say they wanted to do Worlds, they extended it to more players and they did like a Swiss portion, they did it over 4 days or something. Like, you couldn't do that at BlizzCon. Or like maybe you could, but you'd have to do the first days like in the pre-BlizzCon thing, and I just don't think that kind of stuff works out. I think it's good to have BlizzCon be this announcement for content and stuff, and not have half your audience distracted by
the problem. The sad part is like BlizzCon got mostly, I think, overshadowed by non-Hearthstone related stuff.
Yeah, sure, but like we're not talking about that like on this show. I mean. The Hearthstone got enough hate from that anyway, so yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
I think there's not much more other esports to talk about. What's coming up soon? There's not actually that.
There's, I think, one more HCT event coming up soon, if I'm not mistaken.
And some international. There's some Lions tournament as well. There's some Chinese invitational.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but there's also this November is the last season for points for HCT Last Call. For ladder, so it's like a pretty big season for a lot of ladder players trying to make it, especially the ones competing for last call, but as well it's the last kind of season that you're going to earn points to qualify for what will be the last just last call. I think we've had all 3 of the championships, right?
I think so,
anyway, that is all we have for this episode. It's been quite a long one, obviously, with the Rastakhan's Rumble announcement. So we're going to hopefully be back in more of a regular weekly pattern from now. Hopefully we get some more card reveals. And we've got lots of content to talk about next week and the stuff we missed in the meantime anyway. So make sure you hit subscribe, like, and share the video. Let all your friends know that we're back. And we will see you next time. Cheerio.
Cheerio.